This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine.
Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and welcome to another episode of WCM's Park Update. And of course, my co-host is Mike Gast. I'm former vice president of communications at Campgrounds of America, and soon to be back in the mainland. And
yeah, they're going to drag me over as soon as I can find that cheap one-way ticket.
And you're going to have a new grandbaby, so that's great.
They got one on the way, and unfortunately, it's well. I love Omaha. Omaha's a great city. It just doesn't have any oceanfront property yet. Maybe that's coming.
Yeah, we got maybe in a million years, right? They'll have some ocean front. So, our guest today is Adam Lendi from Happy Camper Capital. And Adam, you were at the glamping show, and I must have missed you. Or there was a lot of people there, though. I think
it was a big turnout this year. Yeah, so we definitely, probably crossed paths somewhere in there, just didn't see each other. So,
yeah, and you must have missed my off-grid panel. So else you would have seen me there. It's always riveting to talk about wastewater. So, but a lot of the
big
people
topic, it's important.
Yeah, it is important. A lot of the people in the audience seem to enjoy it. So, we're here to talk about your company. You guys just announced a new investment fund a few days ago, $25 million. You guys are expanding. I guess, can you just give us a little bit of background on your company and what you guys are hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, I'll take you way back to the beginning first, just to kind of let you know where we come from. So my business partner and co-founder on Happy Camper Capital, Justin Hoggett, our families, have been friends for several years. Very similar. We actually formed this whole business on a camping trip. So it was just something that was already ingrained in our families and what we did. We both had different backgrounds in real estate leading into this. I was a broker and had a single family investment portfolio. Justin was the multifamily guy, and kind of in the midst of all the lockdowns in 2020 and the eviction moratoriums, he was getting his teeth kicked in with, non-payers on rent. And he was kind of tired of being a landlord. And, he pitched the business idea to me. He'd actually already been looking at campgrounds. And of course, it just happened to be, one of the best years in the industry. So, we sat down and started looking at, how we could turn this into a business. And our initial idea was that we were going to buy, 3 or 4 campgrounds ourselves and just own them on our own with our families and make some extra living off of that. But of course, we can't leave well enough alone. We definitely had a bigger vision, and we just went, okay, well, if we buy 3 or 4, how would we buy 100? I think was how the conversation went. We said, well, obviously it's not going to be with our own money. We don't have enough for that. So, we started learning everything we could about real estate syndication, common in areas like multifamily, self-storage, mobile home, not so much in this asset or this industry. So we realized pretty quickly there was a lot we had to learn, but also a lot we had to create. Getting into this space, just learning how to underwrite a campground. Really, the only resource out there at the time was the RV Park University from Frank and Dave, who started off in the mobile home world. But even their resource was really meant for more like the RV community, the long-term living. And they really didn't account so much for the transient model that we were going after. So we had to kind of create a lot of our own tools and a lot of our own models getting into this, just to learn how to underwrite these, to do our business plans, our projections, and we're still perfecting those. In fact, we're actually just about to get version 3 or 4.0 out right now in that model. But it then turned into us building a team and growing a team of guys who were doing acquisitions with us and interfacing with campground owners to find who wants to potentially sell, and then a side that raises the capital to make them happen. And in the midst of that, we formed a management company too to run our own properties. So kind of a lot of moving parts, and it's been a wild journey, but we're really gaining some traction this year. So that brings us to the fund that you opened with.
So when was that very first park? When did you acquire that? Where was it?
Our very first campground is in Oxford, Iowa, which is 15 minutes west of Iowa City. It was a little campground called Sleepy Hollow RV Park when we bought it. We rebranded it under our management company, so it's Beyond Our Getaway at Sleepy Hollow. 148 sites. It has some mobile homes on site that were on the back of the property. Most of those are occupied by folks who work in the campground. Was just a really great place for us to get our feet wet. We learned a lot in that one, especially speaking of the wastewater thing up front. We bought a property that had an out of compliance lagoon. So that's one of the things we got to get into right away was, getting a package plant put together. And, unfortunately, we were able to negotiate that with the purchase, but that was number one. And we've got 4 now. And like we discussed, moving into this fund that's going to add several more over the next year.
So how many investors do you guys have in the company?
Well, so we've been working a traditional syndication model up until now, which basically means that we're only working on one deal at a time. So, we've got 2 campgrounds in Iowa, 1 in Indiana, and a property in Missouri. And basically what that meant for us is we'd find the property, we'd underwrite it, get it under contract, we'd start forming the business plan. Once we had all of our projections together, we'd approach our investors with it. And it was more or less a fire drill, because now you're on a timeline on this purchase contract. You're not only trying to do all your diligence to purchase it, but you're also trying to raise the capital for it. So, our number of investors has varied per deal. Our first one only had 9 or 10 investors. One of our most recent had over 30 investors. So it really just depends on the size of the purchase. We've got a very large investor database, but the trouble with this model, like I said, is just it's a fire drill for us. It's all hands on deck. It's a lot of sleepless nights, leading up to the purchase. And this fund is not only going to give us the ability to maybe get some sleep again, because we'll actually be able to have some money up front, but actually be a better service to our investors by being able to a stronger negotiator, going in with all cash potentially in the purchase and being able to then refinance some debt into it.
So do you find that your investors are knowledgeable about the camping business, or do you really have to start from square one with them?
Good question, Mike. It depends on who you talk to. We do actually attract a lot of campground owners who like the business, understand the business, would like to add another park but don't want to run it. So it ends up being great for them. They understand the business model. We don't have to explain it. A lot of the investors, or the brunt majority we bring in, are folks who are coming from other assets, the multifamily, the mobile home, the self-storage. The good deals just aren't there in those spaces. So they're looking for the next opportunity to get into. And frankly, when you look at campgrounds and the way they perform, it's a big difference from what they're seeing in these other assets. So it's almost too good for them to believe. And we spend a lot of time educating them on the business and actually letting them know, no, believe me, our numbers are conservative.
The industry is just booming right now, and like you mentioned, there's a lot of profits coming in to the industry, a lot of investment opportunities. When you're talking to these investors, I imagine they have to ask about the economy and how things are going and what that future looks like. So I guess, what do you think the future looks like in the next couple of years? Do you think the profits are still going to be there, I guess?
Well, good question, Ben. What we're seeing right now, and of course, we're following as much industry data as you guys have over at Woodall's, and as we can get from, say, like the KOA, camping reports and such. Which are really showing that we've had a large influx of new campers. Obviously, there's a certain amount of attrition we expect every time new campers come in. A certain number fall off, certain numbers stay in. The reports are mostly positive, just showing that most of the newer campers we've acquired over the last couple of years intend to keep doing it. So there's a big advantage there. What we have seen is exactly what I've seen. Actually, I don't have it handy to reference right now, but there was a CNBC article from a few months back about our industry specifically, and about how even the high gas prices this year didn't drive down the numbers. It really just drove down where people were going. And, we're seeing that anecdotally in our own campgrounds, whereas, even the ones that are closer to the interstates, how they're seeing a lot more interstate use, from folks out of state. And we're just seeing more users in their backyard now. Which kind of goes back to one of our purchase criteria, which is that we always buy within 2 hours of a major metropolitan center. Just knowing that if we lose the out-of-state traffic because they don't want to pay, that much for diesel driving cross country, that we can at least get the folks who want to go 20, 30 minutes from home.
Let's talk a little bit about what type of park you're targeting here. Is it the smaller mom and pop parks? Is it a distressed park? Is it a park that's got tons of land and potential? What are you looking for?
It depends, but I'll walk you through our minimum criteria when we start looking is at least 100 sites. Our model, because we do run a remote managed model. So as I mentioned, we own our management company. We install a general manager at each campground. And then they have staff who delegate, out for guest relations and for maintenance. There's a lot of payroll, a lot more than a lot of the smaller mom and pops can actually afford. In addition to, of course, the fact that we've also got investors involved too, who we owe a reasonable return to. So a lot of the smaller ones actually just aren't feasible. So I would say in general, about 100 sites is the minimum we're looking for. Transient is what we're targeting because we know how to ratchet up the revenue centers in that type of property. We do, of course, like value add, but that comes in the form of sometimes distressed, which maybe isn't our most preferred. We do like expansion opportunities. My favorites are turnarounds, just going in it with a mismanaged business and just running a little tighter ship and bringing in some of the leverage power we have with economies of scale through different vendors and by sharing services.
Would you take a look at like a 60 to 80 site park if there was the ability to expand and get up above that 100 site?
Do you have one you want to sell me?
No.
To answer your question, yes, we do. If they've got the acreage and if we can show there's demand, which we're just going to look at the occupancy rates. So if we're seeing, high occupancy at that campground, we're seeing maybe not a ton of competition in the area. We're seeing, good stable growth in the cities nearby, good attraction to the area. We'll look at a business plan to expand that 60 to 80 sites to get up to something where we would want to be.
Okay. Yeah.
So what scares investors about this business? And it's been a hot thing to do for the last couple of years, and it's kind of been on autopilot in the growth factor. But we've seen a little bit of slowdown this last few months for a lot of reasons. And is there things that you have to convince investors about the business?
Well, with investors, like I said, a lot of them coming in just feel like we're being bullish sometimes because what they're used to seeing is these assets like multifamily where the returns are not relatively large, and we're coming in and projecting, some very, very high numbers in some cases. And like I said, we do our best to even temper those numbers so that they don't show as big as we think they could be. So that's part of it. We have to overcome that hurdle, so that they realize that we aren't being too bullish. The other big concern investors have had is that this is a relatively new investment asset. Not a lot of folks were investing in this space before, with the exception of your large institutions. So in this model specifically that we're doing, these private placements, really nobody has gone full cycle that we know of on a deal in this space. So there is that risk in that it's something new that hasn't been proven beyond a couple of years. When we first got in, I didn't know of any other groups doing what we're doing. And since we've had several crop up, but even most of those came within the last 1 year. So, it's just, some of it's a lot of it's the unknown. Now, of course, you look at this as a risk versus reward. There is, of course, more risk in that we don't have a 20-year track record. However, the potential returns are there for that. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a minute for a break to talk about our sponsor, and we'll be right back with Adam. WCM's Park Update is being brought to you by Woodall's Campground Magazine. For over 5 decades, Woodall's Campground Magazine has aimed to provide park owners and operators with the relevant industry news they need to run their businesses more efficiently. As times have changed, so has Woodall's Campground Magazine. Besides just its print publication, which is distributed to more than 14,000 industry professionals every month, the magazine also reaches readers through its various social media platforms, including Facebook at WCM, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Woodall's Campground Magazine also offers a daily e-blast which highlights the top news from the industry. The best part, everything we do is advertiser supported and free to our readers. As the outdoor hospitality industry continues to grow at a rapid pace, it is important to stay up to date on trends and other relevant news. Subscribe to Woodall's Campground Magazine at woodallscm.com. Hi, and welcome back to WCM's Park Update. We're talking with Adam Lendi from Happy Camper Capital. And Adam was just giving us some insights into what kinds of parks they're investing in. I guess, Adam, so is there the potential down the road to maybe want to do a full-scale development project, or are you just like focused on already existing parks?
Good question. It's actually been in our model since the beginning. We saw that, especially when the demand really ticked up in the last year, we saw that the need was going to be there to develop more sites. I know that the numbers are dated that I have that, historically it was 2.5 RVs to every one site in the country. I know that ratio has probably gone up. I wish I had that stat exactly, but yes. So to answer your question, development is in our future. In fact, we're in early talks with a group right now who's looking to help with some of the development and getting the bonds in place that we would need to do some, large developments in some great opportunity areas.
I guess when you look at these parks, man, I lost my train of thought. That's what happens when you get old like me. So,
Well, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So where does this, do you see other people starting to get interested in what you're doing, Adam? And is there going to be more competition for folks doing what you're doing out there?
There are several groups getting into this space. I don't know that I see them as direct competitors. Again, there's still so much opportunity in this space. And even though I've seen the number of groups doing what we're doing grow drastically, we're still finding the opportunities we need. We are sourcing, almost all of our deals off market. We've got a team of acquisitions guys who are building relationships with campground owners. Rather than just relying on brokers. So we're getting the opportunities we need, and we really don't have anybody who's crowding us in our space yet. I do see this, picking up. In fact, I just heard a radio commercial the other day for a group who's doing exactly what we're doing. So somebody I hadn't heard of yet who's new to the scene.
So it's pretty general terms, but is it a buyer's market still or a seller's market?
Well, I think what we're seeing with interest rates right now is certainly having an effect. A lot of the owners we're talking to who might have mentioned that they had multiple offers a few months ago, they're not really saying that so much now. So I think, with interest rates in some cases getting as high as, 7%, north of 7%, that's certainly changing who's coming into the space and who's buying a lot of these campgrounds. It also affects us in our underwriting and, just making sure that we're planning our business plans accordingly.
So as you grow, are you concerned about finding talented general managers for these parks?
That's something that we are actually working on right now. We've had good success. We've had some learning lessons along the way in hiring good management. We've got on our management side, which is Beyonder Camp, we've got 2 full-time employees right now at the corporate level who are handling operations and transitions for new campgrounds that come in. They have built out a great model for hiring and training and onboarding. So we are going to keep pushing that model. We're actually working toward building our own, I don't want to say work camper because that's not what it is, but our own program for hiring employees that's going to, basically create a pipeline of candidates for our campgrounds.
Has there been any thought to hiring a separate management firm like Blue Water, Horizon, places like that to manage the parks, or do you like to have that kind of control through your own management company?
Well, so like I said, we started Beyonder Camp to manage our own properties. Part of this just being our background in real estate management, knowing that nobody is ever going to care about about your property as much as you do. So when you hire a third party, they might just be doing the bare minimum, and we figured we owed it to our investors to give them something a little more, I guess a little bit more security in that management, knowing that we had total control over it. Now, that was a bigger undertaking than we originally, thought it was. We severely underestimated how easy it would be to run a management company. A lot of lessons learned along the way, but we built out actually such a good model at this point. We've got everything really well systematized to where we're actually getting other campground owners who are asking us to manage their campgrounds. So, that started at OHC last year. A lot of the prospective owners out there who we networked with were buying campgrounds, had no idea what they were doing, thought they could maybe just hire a person and walk away. We came back realizing there's a need for it. So we spent the last year actually producing a third-party management model that we are going to be unveiling at our booth at OHC this year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just a fantastic time to be in the industry, and there's so much people interested in working at campgrounds. Are you finding that finding employees is difficult? Or I know he asked about general managers, but I mean, just like the general employees, is it easy to staff these parks?
Depends on the market you're in, which is, again, this goes back to our selection criteria. We've had pretty good success getting them staffed because, again, we're close to major metro centers. We don't have a single one of these that's more than about 2 hours from a major population center. So getting the employees, at least getting a number of candidates is easy. And then the more candidates you have, the more options you have, as opposed to, being maybe somewhere too remote where you might have to take what you get.
So what do you see yourself size-wise at in 2 years? How big can this get and how fast?
Well, so on the Happy Camper side, we're raising a $25 million fund this year. The plan is going to be, once we succeed with that, to double that to a $50 million fund for the following year. So with that, in the next 2 years, I would like to see us owning somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 to 40 campgrounds at that point. And then on the Beyonder side, as we open up our management, I would like to, in 2 years, have about 100 under management.
Wow, that's pretty aggressive.
We set big goals.
Yeah, that is pretty aggressive. So, I mean, there's a lot of interested park owners who are interested in selling right now. So it's a great time for that. And then, I mean, if you get the development thing going, it would be pretty interesting to see. On the development side, it seems like it's a lot harder with the permitting and everything, the zoning. Do you guys run into those issues that much? Have you guys tried expanding very much at your parks?
Yeah, and that's something we do as a matter of due diligence on the purchase. So if there's undeveloped acreage, we make sure before we even close that we're going to be able to get the use that we want to develop those extra sites. In the case of one of the properties we're working on right now, we're buying, an adjacent lot to expand onto. So we're already starting. I mean, we're early in the purchase contract. We're already going through the rezoning process on that to get it where we want. So we haven't run into any major hurdles yet. Fortunately, this space, especially when we can sell it to these local governments as tourism and recreation, they like that a lot more than mobile home. So, we haven't had any major roadblocks yet in getting that done. More our limits are just the size of the sewage systems we're working with, and just how many units you can put on a piece of land.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sounds like you guys just are real positive outlook. So hopefully things continue to go well for you.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, we've got an amazing team. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are right now, and certainly not where we're going to be a year from now without the guys and gals on our team. We've got currently 8 people just on the Happy Camper side, and aside from our campground staff on the Beyonder side, we've got 2 there, and of course, with all of our campground employees, about 50 total on that side. So, just having a great team behind you makes a difference.
So you mentioned that you've got current campground owners that can get into this investment fund and invest some of the capital without owning another park. They sort of do own at least a piece of this. How do they get started with that? If you want to be an investor, where do you go?
Well, thanks for that that segue. So the best place to get started is we've got an investor portal on our website. It's investors.happycampercapital.com, or if they just go to our main website, happycampercapital.com, they can get there. But in the investor portal, we show our current opportunities. The way these are structured, like you mentioned, they actually do own a percentage of the real estate, which means they get the cash flow from the business. They get, the potential upside in when we sell it. These are planned 5-year hold, and they also get to share in some of the asset depreciation. So there's some tax advantages to it as well too. So in the portal, obviously we do have to approve everybody who comes in. So they've just put in a request. We have a quick phone call with them, and then we can get them in to see what we've got going. But we've got in this fund right now that we're raising, we actually already have an opportunity in there that they can see. It's a great campground, that I can't say too much about publicly because we've got an NDA on it, but once they're in, they can see it. And then we're about to add a second one next week. So, there'll be known opportunities in this fund.
Wow. Okay. And you guys are going to be at the Outdoor Hospitality Conference and Expo, National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds. Were you guys there last year?
We were present last year. We were there visiting and, like I said, building out our models and, doing some great networking out there. But this year we're showing up with Beyonder Camp, the management company. We've got a booth 554. We're going to be, like I said, unveiling our third-party management company for those owners who are looking to step out and have somebody else run their business and integrate some of our systems to help them grow to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Adam, for coming on the show. And I mean, you taught us a lot. I think the investment fund sounds really neat, and I hope you guys have continued success. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Orlando, I guess. Hopefully the weather's nice. So.
But it looks like your big hobby is paragliding. So hopefully you get all of your risk out of the way doing that.
That's yeah. I mean, there's a lot more risk in this business, I think, than to paragliding. To be perfectly honest with you, I haven't had any major incidents with that yet, but I've had a lot more sleepless nights in this business. So,
well, thank you again, Adam, and I look forward to seeing you down the road. And thanks everyone for watching.
Hey, gentlemen, we'll see you in Orlando.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com. Show hosts are Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. Executive producers Rick Kessler and Alex Burkett. Copyright 2022, G&G Media Group.